Welcome to Realist Revolution USA. This is the podcast for real patriots who care about real America. I am Macklin, one of your resident realists, and with me is my co host, your other resident realist. It's Kim.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Macklin. Good to see you today. Today we have a fantastic guest with us. He is a retired Marine. And so today we're going to be getting real about the Marines. Kevin, uh, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Appreciate you taking the time today.
Pleasure. Glad to be here.
And so basically, let's jump right in. The few, the proud, the Marines, right? Kevin, can you kind of give us an idea? I guess let's start at the beginning, right? What kind of started your journey with the Marines and um, why the Marines also? Like, why not the Army? Why not the Navy?
Well, I will tell you, so as a kid growing up in Louisville, and I'm a retired Marine, um, but I would say most people in the military have some version of this. Grew up in a family that where the military was held in high regard. My grandfathers, I'm the youngest of four boys, by the way. Grandfathers were like World War II. uh, One was in the Navy, but then I had an older brother. Like I said, I'm the youngest of four. My older brother went in the Army. So imagine you're in kindergarten and you have a brother who's a senior in high school, right? So that was the age gap. So he went in the Army at like 75. So think of totally different deal. His job in the Army is he was in the band. He was a tuba player in the band. And what was really interesting is the inspiration. You're going to talk to people, anybody you talk to, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, I don't care who it is. Most of them have a couple, there's chain reactions, influence points, right? What starts it and then what keeps it going. For me, it was my brother was first, the family was reinforcing, but I thought that was really cool. And what was even funnier is he was in the band, all through high school. And because of that, that's why I played football, even though wasn't the biggest guy. But I remember going to a going to a Friday night football game. I'm in kindergarten and the place is packed, right? Well, we're really there to see my brother in the marching band at halftime. Well, the very next day, we had to go back to another high school for a band contest. And Kim, I think your family's got band experience.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The bleachers were empty. I'm like, hmm, where's all the people from last night? And that's why I played football. I bring that up, but so as a little kid, I wanted to be in the military, and um, a lot of triggers happen. At one point, 1986, greatest movie ever made came out called Top Gun. Probably heard of it. So anybody my age that went into the military, and then we're all old and retired, unless some of my buddies are. I've got a couple buddies are generals now. They're still in. If they say that Top Gun didn't influence them in some way, they're awful of crap, and I don't care if that was to be a mechanic in the Air Force, it influenced you, right? So, long story short, I go through high I always knew I wanted to either, I played sports, wrestled, played high school football, played college football, did all that, but I always wanted to be in the military, and I don't know, there was a time I met some people who were Marines, and they were just different, and as a kid growing up, dad was in the Air Force in the 40s and 50s and Navy and older brothers in the Army. And whenever you heard him talk about Marines, it was just, it's different and not better, not worse, different. Now there was some attraction to that. So I went and I said I was going to be an officer. And I will tell you, I went out of high school. I went to the Naval Academy Prep School. I was a recruited wrestler. I'll be honest with you, I was in way over my head academically, mainly from a math perspective. I went up there and I'll be honest with you, I wrestled. I loved it. I established relationships. It was in Newport, Rhode Island. I finished that year and I was like, man, I'm not going to make it. They're going to the academy. I'm going to either fail out. I was wrestling, cutting a lot of weight, things like that. And what's so funny about it was I didn't know I could have like just quit my sport on day one. Um, and I bring that up because the one thing I got out of that, and that's kind of, I guess my journey is about, you'll hear me use the term people, places, and stories, is the people I met there in that one year in Newport, Rhode Island. There were some Marines there. There were some Marines on the staff. And this is a prep school. It's like a red shirt year for athletes. Uh, at the end of the year, I'm like, listen, if I go to the academy, I'm going to fail out. There's no way I could even do that. Um, and I just was not math at that level. And I talked to a Marine, and he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I'm pretty sure I want to go to college. I want to graduate. I want to be a Marine officer. I want to lead Marines." And he said, "Well, go home and get into a good college and go to OCS." And it was kind of neat that how all that worked out because I was able to get into a really, really good school, liberal arts college. So the whole math thing didn't get you. All through high school, I played football and I wrestled. I pole vaulted, believe it or not. I was a better wrestler than I was a football player, but I liked football better. So I was able to go to a D3 college and play football. And while I was there, they have this program that I went through, and that's when I called Marine Officer Candidate School. And there's different ways to do it. Number one, you got to be, in college. You have to apply physically, mentally fit, all those types of things. And I went to Marine OCS, and there's some programs that you could either go 6 weeks and 6 weeks. So what that is Officer Candidate School, Quantico, Virginia. The program you could go 6 weeks, either the first 6 weeks after freshman year or sophomore year. And if you graduate from that 6-week period, you are invited back to what's called seniors, and that will be the summer after your junior year of college. If you graduate from there, you will then be offered a commission as a second lieutenant upon graduation, and then you'll go to Quantico. Well, I went through that program and just kind of knew from day one, there was something about the Marines. It was kind of like wrestling and playing high school football. Very, why did I do it? I don't know. There's something in my head that said, I'm doing it because other people can't. So anyway, I went to the Marine Corps. I thought I was going to do about 4 years, as a second lieutenant, maybe get out as a captain. I had a degree, great college, and that turned into 23. And it's funny that you had asked me before, Kim, when we talked, you said, why do you join? Well, people join for different reasons. People stay for different reasons. People fight for, pretty
Mhm.
much one reason. And what was really interesting for me is I look back and said, "Why'd you stay?" It's called you call yourselves realist revolutions, right? Reality is for me, it was like the closest thing to high school football. It was the closest thing to a meritocracy. You're the most vulnerable you will ever be in your life, and it is the peak of trust of the people you're with. And like I said, it's not all unicorns and rainbows, and it's not death and it's not all that. It was the camaraderie, the men and women you're around, the trust that you develop, the people that you meet. So for me, for example, the people that you meet in 1995 and fast forward when you're a second lieutenant, fast forward, 2012, you're a lieutenant colonel in Afghanistan and you hadn't seen that person since 1995, but you call them on the radio and it's like, hey man, what's up? Hey, I need this, this, and this. Gotcha. And so that's that's my story there. I met my wife along the way, married, got 2 kids, retired in 2017, almost 2000 end of 2017, I retired. Convinced my wife to leave a house on a cul-de-sac with a pool and no taxes in Tampa, Florida, and, moved to Louisville, Kentucky. I was very fortunate growing up in Louisville. I've got a tribe of friends, and that tribe has grown, but I've got people from, I went to Catholic grade school, I went to public high school, I was fortunate to go to a college with a very good network. I want to raise my kids in that tribe, and we've been here 6 years. So, one of the guys I met in the Marine Corps helped me move home, and he knew I was in Florida, and I worked for a year in Florida. I had a really cool job there. I'll tell you about it in a second. A guy that I met in the Marine Corps had moved from Louisville, been here 20-something years, knew I wanted to come home. And his family had a real estate brokerage. And he said, hey, why don't you come help me grow it? He said, but let's just figure it out. So I did. And I spent 6 years, helped open some offices, got into recruiting and coaching. And then I found out, hey, this is a whole lot like what I've been doing since high school in Marine Corps. And it's all because it's about people.
It
And
all comes back to like family. Like there's a
it's all
family feel everywhere you go.
what I
And
call it the
yeah,
ecosystem, and that's one of the things I teach is, what's your your book of business is your life story, right? Like I don't ever make cold calls. Now, some of the salespeople will say, you're not going to be successful. No, but I can make thousands of warm calls. And hey, you remember me from third grade? Literally, I've saved all that stuff. And so I've been here 6 years. So I stepped back from the management side, recruiting side to take the rest of this year. I'm doing some side things where I like to help and teach and coach people. What I'm doing now is a little bit different than what I've done in the past 25 years, but at the same time, it's all about people. So that's kind of where I am, and that's my story.
Love it. Speaking of jobs, do you mind sharing what your rank was when you retired?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I retired as a lieutenant colonel, and who'd have thought that? Maybe wasn't good enough to be a full bird colonel. That's fine with me. As I like to say, I peaked, and I can look myself in the mirror and say, um, I'm good. I'll be honest with you. I had kind of a complex for a while, but man, do I really want to be a colonel? Wow. I remember my last job in the Marine Corps, I was on a flight. If you fly from Tampa, Florida to Bahrain, commercial, it's 24 hours from, getting, even going to the airport to hitting the rack where you're on your next step is 24 hours. So anyway, I have a lot of time. And so I had this period in 2006, 16, 17, I was writing it down. And I was like, okay, what am I good at? What am I not good at? What do I like? What I don't like? I didn't get it the first time. Do I want to try to do that? And it was really interesting. I did the pros and the cons. And you know what it came down to for me? And the reason is because I said, this is what colonels do, but this is what lieutenant colonels do. Back to what I told you, you'll hear me use a lot of football metaphors in life. Lieutenant colonel, in my opinion, is the last rank in the military. And remember, I was infantry officer, so in combat arms, where you're like a player coach. I mean, they don't. That's a novel concept to many. I don't know. I think Pete Rose might have been Pete Rose or Bill Russell might have
Bill
been the last.
Russell, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one of the last player coach, but a lieutenant colonel is the last time you're a player coach. You're with the boys, and you are you're on patrol. And for me, it was kind of like, okay, I'm a terrible staff officer. I'm not great at that. And so what it kind of came down to was, it's funny, the piece of paper showed me, it's like, why do I really want to be a colonel? And it was like, wow, so people, when I retire, would call me colonel. Well, hell, I coach Little League football. They all call me colonel now. That's fine. So I was retired as lieutenant colonel. I was infantry. I like to tell the way the Marine Corps works as an officer and as an enlisted. You do your primary job, you get trained, and if for whatever reason, however, you get to pick, and the Marine Corps gets to pick of what your primary job was. I was very fortunate. I got infantry. It was my number one choice. In 95, I went to infantry officer course at Quantico, which is brutal. It's think of like Navy SEALs, Army Ranger. I don't care what anybody says. It's the toughest school in the Marine Corps. You finish that, and your first job, you go lead a platoon of Marines. What's interesting is you get to do that for about 2 years or so, and you get pretty good at it. And then you got to go man the company store. And the way that works is, you're in an infantry unit and you deploy. My first one was in 95, 96, 97. Went on ship and went and did, America's 911, right? My first job, I had 40 Marines. I was responsible for everything they did and failed to do. We're waiting to be called in. And got to go on some awesome Liberty ports. I mean, think about it. Australia, Thailand, you name it, it was great. But then you got to go man the company store. And if you want to keep doing it and get promoted, well, mainly you're going to go work at boot camp, you're going to go work at the schoolhouse, you're going to go work on recruiting duty. Well, I got recruiting duty. And I will tell you, this many years later, I've got 5 combat deployments. The hardest job I ever had in the Marine Corps was 2 years on recruiting duty. It's the
I was
hardest
gonna
job.
say recruiting is
Yeah.
one doesn't matter what branch you're
No.
in. You're either really good at it or you're just there slugging through it. It
Well, and
seems to
it's
be.
weird. For me, my job was the operations officer. So I was coordinating for a commanding officer of 56 Marine recruiters in West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, and Southern Ohio, 98 to 2000. If you remember, Clinton was president, so he slashed the military. But more importantly, the economy was great. We weren't at war anywhere. Okay. Not a good time to recruit. Nobody needs a job and we're not fighting anywhere. So, but I finished that. And then over life changed. Obviously, you go to school. I went to kind of captain school. Then 9/11 happened. I was a company commander, Campus Union, North Carolina. Now I'm in charge of 100 plus, and you know, 9/11 happened. That was a game changer for everybody. That was a game changer for everybody in the world.
Mhm.
What happened. I know for me as a leader, that was the kind of the jump start of, wow, okay, I get this. I like this. I'm actually pretty good at this. What matters, what doesn't matter. You go through your first couple years second guessing yourself, and then, when the time comes, you find out, hey man, I'm actually I was right. I'm pretty good at this. So I bring that up because I spent over the next, I don't know, from 1994 to 2007, late 2017, I was either leading Marines infantry. I've led two companies in combat. Been operations officer, coordinating everything in Iraq and Battle of Fallujah. Been a battalion commander, had 1,800 Marines I was responsible for in Afghanistan. And when I wasn't doing that, I was either teaching, probably one of the best jobs I ever had. I was teaching, I was going to grad school, or I was in some sort of a planning staff, strategic planning role. And I did that for all those years. And now I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, and life is good. And like I said, I've got two boys. There's never a dull moment.
I can attest to that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my Marine Corps story. But like I said,
Awesome.
I think I peaked. I gave the Marine Corps everything I have, and they gave me everything they have for me, and it all worked out. And I have, never gets have some, but um, it was that's my story in my career. So with that, there's the background. Wasn't a big hero. I wasn't an intelligence. No, I was very fortunate. I got to lead Marines, and that's to me. It doesn't matter whether you're infantry, whether you're motor team, whatever. A Marine's a Marine. That's different. We're like that. That's different. But I was very fortunate. I got to lead Marines in combat on multiple occasions, and it was, for better or worse, it was honorable. I loved it. It was great. So
Kevin, you mentioned the military budget and you mentioned recruitment and your experience with that. And I'm curious what your concerns are now or your feelings now. Think recruitment is doing okay, but it's on an overall general decline for the last decade or so, I think. And correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm curious how you feel about the budget as it is and resources that the military has, that the Marines have at their disposal, and what needs to be done to improve things
well, Mac, I will tell
currently.
you this from Kevin's perspective on that. Okay, I'll hit one at a time. Uh, Recruitment. Okay, recruitment has struggled um, for years. I mean, think about it. You're on a war footing for how many years, right? And at some point, it kind of wears out. It's like, hey, what are we doing? What's the objective? And what's victory look like? Somebody tell me that. I mean, you want to know if I have regrets? That was some of mine, but tell me what victory is. Okay, um, if you can't do that, and you saw what happened, when they pulled out and all that crap happened. But that really hurt recruitment. Huge. Here's the other thing. On recruitment, a lot of things over the last few years, and the reason is I'm still tied in with, and I call it Marine Corps recruiting, but a lot of recruiting. I talk to other recruitings, even in businesses on recruiting. What were the standards? What was that like? What did it take to get in? Okay. And I'm going to bring this all together because it's all about, you talked about resources, and I could talk about the Marine Corps, but as a private citizen and a retired, I could give you, I would like to say, somewhat educated, experienced view. You know what I mean? That's what always, it's like, you ever have a professor of, you know, talking about some foreign country and all about the culture and all about that stuff. And you go, have you ever been there? Well, no, but well then, eh. So
Yep.
I'm not saying I'm an expert, but here's the thing. You take recruiting. What was the purpose? Why were people joining? Remember, I brought that up earlier. Why did I join? I don't know. I joined.
And that surprised me, if I could just interrupt for a second, it surprised me you said that the relative calm in the 90s hurt recruitment, because I would have thought that might have given people a peace of mind that if they joined, they didn't think they would be deployed. So that was interesting to hear from you.
Well, and remember, I'm talking from the Marine Corps perspective. So as Marines,
Do you want to
we
go?
don't want people that the Marine Corps doesn't want anybody that doesn't want to go fight. Okay. That's why you join. I mean, and the thing is back to, let's get some experience and then teach, right? Don't get a degree, have no experience and then teach. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm trying to help people understand. I know for me, looking at recruiting um, from the Marine Corps perspective, there's no requirement to join the military. Okay. The military, the United States military, is not an equal opportunity employer in any way, shape, or form. Okay. If you're too fat, you can't join. If you're too short, you can't do certain jobs. If you have flat feet, if your eyesight, if you're on, certain medications, if you desire, because if you are a member of the active duty U.S. military, you need to be worldwide deployable on a moment's notice. Well, thing is your medication ready? I mean, really think about that. Here's what happened between 1998 and I would say now, and when I talk to some folks in the recruiting world, I remember trying to get kids into the officer route, even the enlisted route. It was like, you had Ritalin? You ever taken Ritalin? Have you ever taken Ritalin, Macklin? No. Okay. Well, and the reason is I'm not saying we did that, but it was one of those. Back then, it was like, well, you have to stay off it for 6 months. I need a doctor's note. Now it's like, whoa, wait a second. I mean, think about how many kids are obese, how many kids are on some kind of medication. So a lot of that's gotten shifted. And so recruiting was kind of hard. Now, look at different services. Now, Air Force and Navy, Air Force, and I can speak Air Force. I'm a graduate of the Air War College. Smart, very, 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 high, very technical, right? Theirs wasn't never really had too bad. Okay. But I think the difference was there was a downfall because it's like, what are you going to use me for? You know what I mean? I mean, post 9/11, easy to recruit. Okay. That was easy. But then it's like, what are you going to use me for? Well, then you've got specified skills. You got to meet a certain requirement. That's tough. And the reason I bring all that up is let's talk about the budget. You said the budget. What's the budget spent on? And the reason I bring that up is, Kim, I know where you're up north. I'll give you an example. So you each have, let's just say you each have a family, you're married, you got 2 kids, right? Your kids are the same age, all right? And you each came up with your requirements for food and drinks and household assortment things that you need. Those are your requirements, right? Because you're going to live. You know that you work and your spouse works, but you have 2 kids and they both about the same, right? And you both come up with, we need this much breakfast food, this much meat, this much water, this much this. We need trash bags. We need this, blah, 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 all the way up for 2 weeks, right? Macklin, you go to Aldi to do yours and you get everything you need. Kim goes to Trader Joe's. Okay. You all had the exact same requirements, right? What's your budget look like, Macklin, at Aldi?
So I'm going to admit my ignorance. Aldi is known for being cheaper. Is that correct? Or more
Oh
expensive?
my God.
I actually don't know.
Much
I
cheaper.
don't know.
Okay.
I've never been in an Aldi.
You go to
Okay.
Walmart grocery.
Okay, so my budget's looking pretty good. I think I'm getting a good bang for my buck shopping
You
at
all
Aldi.
both need the same things. You go to Walmart grocery, Kim, you go to Trader Joe's or
Costs
Whole
more.
Foods. How much more?
A lot.
Like stupid more,
Mhm.
right? So really think about, but those are your requirements, right?
Yep.
Because you've determined that your family is your mission. Your mission that you need to be able to do is to provide for your family of 4. And to provide for our family of 4 and everything we need these things is what we've determined. Okay? But we have to go buy that stuff. But what if I told you you're only allowed to buy it from certain people? You got to buy it from my friend because I'm the one that approved the money. You see what I mean? That's how that works. So I bring up the budgets. Go back to Eisenhower. Eisenhower gave a farewell speech in 1960 or 1961. And he said, the military industrial complex is a problem. I mean, think about that. So we talk about the budgets. Here's the thing. I said your requirements, you had requirements, right? Your requirements are based off what? Your mission is to provide as a leader financially, sustenance and everything for that my family has an opportunity to succeed. Okay, that's called the mission. To do that, you need what? You need resources. Okay, one of them, it's probably the hardest one, is you being present, right? We all know. But then there's money resources. Well, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. Well, imagine that on a big, huge scale. And I know this sounds very elementary, but you want to know the biggest thing I learned in the military is it's not that hard, and I teach people this now. I don't care if you're a CEO somewhere. If you can always observe and recognize complexity, but seek simplicity, it'll work out. And you talk about the budget. A lot of people say, oh, the budget. Well, number one, where are they getting their information? But number two, what's the budget process work? Now, Kim, you're probably too young. Macklin, I don't know if y'all are the same age, but I see you got a little experience there.
I'm a little wiser than Kim. Yeah.
Do you remember the cartoon How to Make a Bill on Capitol Hill, the cartoon?
Excuse
Yes, but I
me.
bet even Kim
I
knows
know
that.
that. Thank you.
But have you ever seen the bill on Capitol Hill?
Yes.
Have you
Yeah.
ever seen, have they ever come up with how do you appropriate a bill? How does appropriations work? They don't have that cartoon, do they?
Nope.
How come?
Too many moving
Too
parts.
complicated?
No, think about it. Okay, let me ask you this. Think about, number one, I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything, but what's the number one way to go from zero to wealthy other than the lottery, in the United States?
Kind of
Inheritance?
No.
Rob a
There's
bank?
there's 465 of them on one side and there's 100 on the other. You know?
Oh, get into become a senator or a congressperson?
Think about it. Look at the net worth of in the last so go 2003, 2002 on. Look who got elected look who got elected the last 2 cycles ago. What was their net worth when they were running? What's their net worth now? Okay? I don't care what party, I don't care. But think about that. Okay? Where's that come from? Well, the thing is you want to go to Walmart grocery, okay? Because you can get everything and save a little bit, have a surplus. Wouldn't mind that. But here's the deal. Kim got told she can't have the money to do any shopping unless she goes and gets it at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. Okay? You know what I mean? I mean, really think about that. And you talk about budgets. And the only reason I bring that up is this. There is never going to be a perfect science to that. But when you talk about the military, what I see from the Marine Corps is the Marine Corps' role is to be the president's number one call for a crisis response, whether it's disaster relief or we got to go and break something. They have to be ready tonight. That's the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps they've done different things over the years, but doing counterinsurgency for long wars, that wasn't good. You know, the Marine Corps with the Navy team, but we work with the Navy, we work with the Army. The thing is, what do they need to be able to do that? What's that budget look like? Army, I don't know, but the Army's huge. You know what I'm saying? The Army is humongous. Take the Air Force, look at their budgets. And that's what a lot of people I don't think understand. And this is something I've learned, in my opinion, back to simplicity. We have the greatest Army, Navy, Air Force in the world. Beyond measure, we do. But the thing is if you are not preparing for the next, what's down the road, oh, by the way, your resources should be based off a mission. Not, I want to buy these cool resources and then go find a mission for them. They should be based off the mission. Well, the problem is, as we said, how long does it take to pay for that stuff and build that stuff and think that stuff up? Air Force, everything in the Air Force is about the platform. Okay, everything. The number one role of the Air Force, everybody in the Air Force, it's about the platform. Is it about the jet? It's a bomber. Is it the rocket? It's about that. The Navy is about what? It's about the ship.
Submarines.
No, it's about the ship. The Navy is about the ship. Everything in the Navy is about the ship. His role in the Navy is about the ship. The Army's kind of about the unit and because the Army's huge. But the difference with that in the Marine Corps is this. Everybody in the Marine Corps' role, whether you are the Commandant of the Marine Corps, 4-star Marine Corps, at the end of the day, their number one job is, are they providing the resources for that PFC at the tip of the spear that when something bad happens, it has to be there. Is that PFC got everything he needs? Is the mission been communicated to him? Does he have all the, he or she, do they have all the gear they need? Are they equipped? Everything is about the Marine. And it's really, it's culture that does that. And it's tough because you ask about budgets, and I said the military budget, if you're going to cut, where are you going to cut? Well, the thing is let's just say, for example, you know what, we're not doing any big land wars, so we're going to cut tanks from the Army's budget, right? Yeah, all our tanks are made in Carbondale, Illinois. I'm not saying they are, but just say they are. Think that guy's getting elected again? Nope. Think about that. So here's the deal, though. For better or worse, and y'all say realist revolution, be a realist. Other countries may not have that much of a problem, but it's been like that forever. It's been like that since day one. It's been like that since Thomas Jefferson sent Marines on ships to go to the Barbary pirates. How long did it take to pay somebody to build that ship? Who got to build the ship? Right?
Yeah.
It is what it is. But I think when people talk about military budgets as in percentage of GDP, for our military budget, I have a problem. The problem I have is other people's military budgets, other budgets, other, now you need to do some of that for certain reasons, but that's kind of the ebb and the flow of it. So that's kind of my answer on you say about recruiting. There was a period where after 9/11, it was big, 2010, 2012. I'm a battalion commander in Afghanistan in 2012. My rules of engagement changed 3 or 4 times in like 4 months. And the thing is that came from way up. Why? Because no one could decide what it is we're doing. And I'm not talking way up in the Marine Corps. I'm talking up in DC. Well, that spreads. And then you take the introduction of social media, right? Take the news. Like, here's the deal. Nobody gets their news on TV anymore, do they?
That's true.
Yeah. But here's the thing. If I sat you down and you watched TV news, your only news was you watched TV news for 2 weeks, okay? And you just listen to that, local news and national news. But if you did that, how's that change? You couldn't look at anything else, okay? Well, think about what happened in 1968.
The Vietnam War was broadcast on television? Is that
Well,
what
it's
you're
been
talking about?
broadcast since 1960, but what happened on when Kennedy sent us in? But what happened in 1968? Tet Offensive. Yeah, Tet Offensive. Guess what? From a tactical perspective, we won that thing. You know what's really, what's crazy? South Vietnamese and Americans won that. Here's what's crazy. When Walter Cronkite took his glasses off, kind of like after Kennedy, when he said, I don't know if we're going to ever win this thing. Or Dan Rather, who was there. Oh, Marines are getting killed. That was bad. It's over. Went from there. Now, I'm not saying that was ever even winnable. It wasn't because no one defined victory, right? But when you talk about recruiting, well, recruiting is, if I made Macklin the head football coach of the Salukis, and oh, by the way, I gave you a whole lot of money and said, oh, by the way, Macklin, you got 3 years to win the 1AA national championship. What are you doing? How are you recruiting?
I'm going to the portal. I'm trying to get as many people over here as possible. And with NIL, I'm going to promise them all kinds of money because I've just been given the money and I've been given a deadline.
Okay. Well, the military can't do any of that. So what's next?
I got to recruit. I got to scout talent.
But what do you do? But what do you got to do in your facilities? What do you got to make it look like? You know what I'm saying? And how, by the way, social media, you got to be a social media king, right?
I got to polish my brand to attract people to come. Is that what you're saying?
Why? What's their why? Yeah. So nothing different, You ever seen a movie called The Patriot with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
Remember that? Swamp Fox. It was the Swamp Fox. That's what it's based on, Francis Marion. But when they go in to recruit, remember they have to go recruit a militia? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
They go into a cabin. Think about that. I was like, okay, you get a sip of whiskey and sign up. I mean, whatever works. So anyway, the key with recruiting, I would say, is what's attracting people. Okay. Because there's not a single why. Now, why you stay, I know for me, it was the camaraderie of the people in the Marine Corps. Why you fight because of who's on your left and right. That's why. Okay. You have to, at some point, because you take an oath and you have faith that the people above that said you have to go do this, that you just unleashed hell, we're going to do it. But when you hear a lot of this, for the honor and country and patriotism and blah, 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 it's a bunch of crap. Okay. People fight. And only about 2% of all the military has really been under combat in the last 20 years. Only about 2%. They're really engaged with the enemy. And for better or worse, that's why they fight. That's why Marines fight for each other.
Realist fact check. In the past 20 years, though all sources indicate the percentage varies largely due to differing definitions of combat and data collection methods, all sources put the amount of the military that has been in combat at roughly 10 to 15%. Now back to our conversation.
How does that affect recruiting? Well, I got one for you. This is just something I've learned. How many Army ads have you seen in your life, Macklin?
I would say maybe even thousands, but at least hundreds, at least 500, 600.
Kim,
at least.
you know about that. Okay.
Tons.
What's the Army offer you all the time?
School.
Money for college? A lot. They offer you a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Mhm.
What's the Marine Corps offer you? What has the Marine Corps ever offered you in a commercial?
Honor. Come on, Kevin. The few, the proud, the
Nothing.
Marines. Come on.
But they've
That's
never offered
selling
you.
honor.
No, they've never offered you anything. They've said, maybe, just maybe, you can be one of us. The only thing the Marine Corps ever offered was an opportunity. That's it. You've never seen $50,000 for college. You've never seen, oh, by the way, join the Marines and you can wear the coolest uniforms in the military. Okay. By the way, have not changed in, dress blues have not changed since, 1775. But really think about that. They don't promise you anything. Air Force promises you, Navy, they promise you all kind of stuff. They don't promise you anything. And that's why I said I could speak for the Marine Corps about why they stay, why they fight. Budgets. You bring up budgets. What's the mission? What are you required to do? For better or worse, change administrations every 4 to 8 years, right? Sometimes we change parties, 14 years, 16, 12 years in a row, and then we have 4, whatever. But some of the requirements, hey, I want to do this, I want it may change. Well, how long does it take to buy that? And then when you do say, if you want us to do this, we need these things. We need this many people. We need this much stuff, this type of stuff. Well, that stuff doesn't exist yet. Well, I need you to go create it. Well, how long is that going to take? Well,
Years.
as you all know, do you know the trinity of good, fast, and cheap?
Enlighten me.
You only get 2. Okay. You only get 2. Good, fast, and cheap. So here's the thing. So if you want it to be good and you want it to be fast, it's not going to be very cheap at all. Right. And if you want it to be cheap and if you want it to be good, it's not going to be quick. Okay. And by the way, that's kind of sums it up. Recruiting is good now. I think there's more clarity for better or worse. A lot of people may not like the political environment. I don't, but there's more clarity now. And the reason is this. I learned in the Marine Corps about leadership. Leadership's about trust. Comes from trust, trust, trust. Trust comes from character. Character comes from kind of a mix of empathy, not sympathy, but empathy, curiosity, commitment most of all, commitment to make sure that you're learning. You're a learning leader. That's leadership. But character above all else, I think, is what we're missing the most because character is who you are when no one's looking.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will tell you right now, a lot of things that are going on militarily, this is Kevin's opinion. Do I like the method all the time? No. But I know that who's making decisions, that person I know for a fact, whether I like him or not, whether I agree with it or not, whether I like his methods or not, that person's making that decision. I know it's that person. It's not always like that. Okay. It's not always like that at all. I think, there was a speech with the, Secretary of War, and a lot of people, why do they call it Secretary of War? Well, I will tell you this, really think about this. Up until the 60s, it was called the Secretary of War, right? Up till the 60s. Remember that?
Changed.
What did Eisenhower say? What was Eisenhower's biggest fear when he was leaving office?
The military industrial complex.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. What's easier to get people? What's easier to get money? Oh, we got to build up our defenses or we got to go attack. Defenses is easy, right? That's pretty, think about that. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? No, we're the Department of Defense. We just don't worry about it. They really think about that. So, he gave a speech to all those generals. Did I like the method and how it went down? Not really. But I'm going to tell you what, I love the intent. Why? It hadn't been done before. People, they'll say they're doing these things which never been done before. Okay, that's not a bad thing, right? How does that affect budgets? I think we've seen some things over the last 20 years. Like I said, make a list on the realist revolution of how many elected officials have gone from zero to net worth over $2 million on $170,000. Okay. And where does that come from? So that's my view on that right there.
Realist fact check. Though it's hard to pinpoint due to differing disclosure requirements, how long they remain as a member of Congress, etc., there is indeed a noticeable difference in the proportion of millionaires serving in Congress versus the general U.S. population. This has been true for many decades, but the difference has grown exponentially over time. The percentage of millionaires in the U.S. in 2025 to 2026 sits at rough estimates of about 8.8%. The percentage of congressmen and women that are millionaires has been estimated to be up to about 50%. In 1980, the median net worth of a Congress member was $300,000, while the median U.S. household was $80,000. In 2024, Congress members had a median net worth of $1.5 million, while households had reached $121,000. Congress members were 3.75 times wealthier in 1980 than the general public, but now they are over 12 times wealthier. When we think about how members can go from joining Congress with substantially less and then accumulating that kind of wealth, there are many factors, including many of the following: kickbacks, book deals, speaking engagements, stock deals, insider info for those deals. Insider trading is illegal, but we all know that it happens. Their base salaries, and they can create legislation that's financially favorable for themselves.
I have a question for you, Kevin.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of like have danced around it. So when you enlist, you take an oath to uphold the Constitution, protect America from threats, foreign and domestic. I don't think any time in our lifetimes we've had to truly worry about domestic threats like we do now, as far as like the Constitution itself is basically plainly under attack from domestic forces. So, I mean, you've got your First Amendment, they're clamping down on people saying whatever they want. And certainly the First Amendment does not protect from consequences, right? But you could say whatever you want.
I agree.
But yeah,
I'm the biggest First Amendment rah-rah. Like, go over to our cousins across the pond. They'll throw you in jail.
yeah.
You
I
know that,
mean,
don't you?
so you've got your First Amendment, you've got freedom of the press, all these things, all these different amendments that it's little by little wanted to be eaten away at or kind of containing. But more broadly, as far as that goes, you've got talking about putting Marines in the streets against Americans. And so I guess in your opinion, I know there's a lot of people who feel worried, scared, hopeless when they think about these types of things out there. Okay, I guess I have two questions. Do you think that current and new enlistments, when they take that oath, they take it seriously? Are they willing to make the decisions to go against orders that might direct them to go against the Constitution? And then kind of in hand with that, well, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. So here's the first one. It's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point. The first one I would say, make sure you know the oath, and there's two oaths. Okay, there's the enlisted oath. Okay,
Yeah.
the enlisted oath is 100 years old, and that's very different than the officer oath. Okay, the enlisted oath is: I state your full name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'll bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed over me, according to regulations in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. That's the enlisted oath. Okay? Remember that. The officer oath starts off the same. I state your full name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter, so help me God. That oath. What does that oath not say?
Obeying the president?
Yeah, it doesn't say obey the orders of the President of the United States, does it? No, why? Because we're officers in the military and are both in the executive branch of government. Okay? Like, for example, you brought up the Constitution. I'm right there with you. We talk about posse comitatus, okay? That is, military does not do law enforcement, okay? Unless it's needed because remember, you got state and federal.
Mhm.
Okay. We had this war started in 1860, right? Remember, there was a war that started in 1860? What was the first shot that was fired in that war? It's called Fort Sumter, okay, in Charleston Harbor. Fort Sumter was what? It was a fort guarding the what? The entrance to Charleston Harbor. Who guarded it? That was federal property, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Who fired on that federal property? The
Yeah.
South Carolina State Militia, correct? State, federal property. Now, U.S. forces to defend federal property? Yes. We have federal buildings. We have that stuff. You have federal agents. I'm not going to get into the immigration stuff, but the key is, you know, you're not going to have Marines shoot Americans. Marines, you know,
You're confident it won't happen.
here's the deal. I'm confident before it even got down to the sergeant to say go shoot him. Someone said, "Hey, listen, this doesn't work." But at the same time, 1992, Rodney King riots. Y'all remember that? Okay, what happened?
The lockdown,
No, what happened in L.A.?
the riots.
It all broke
Crazy.
loose.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nuts. It makes it makes Portland look calm. Okay, crazy. Yeah, they sent a regiment of Marines up there. Why? To guard federal property and to support cops, because under that was the Insurrection Act. If you look at it, if the state official is unable or unwilling, okay, to protect federal property or to, calm something that is a threat like that, that's what they did. And that's where I think a lot of people just need to take a deep breath and say, "Hey, would Marines, Constitution, you brought about First Amendment. Totally. I'm the biggest First Amendment person for this reason. One, it works both ways. You know, don't spend a lot of time calling me this, that, and the other. And then when I have an opportunity to do it to you, you just throw a fit and lose your mind. You know what I mean? Don't say that. Now, I think social media, I'm a huge social media fan for multiple reasons. One, I like it because it makes the world smaller. I'm a big believer if I can make the world smaller, okay, we can all find a way to get along. I don't have to agree with everything. We can agree to disagree. But at the same time, I don't like this. I don't like um Mac Daddy Saluki's dog as your Twitter handle and your picture's not there. And all you do is yell and scream about what an idiot I am, um, or what an idiot Kim is, because Mac Daddy Saluki's dog, you won't come out and say it. I think those people, that's not First Amendment. Now, here's the other thing. For better or worse, like I said, and by the way, just so y'all know, I'm not political at all. I'm a down the middle. It's so funny. I had somebody ask me one time, they said, "Are you this party?" And I said, "No." And they act like they didn't want to talk to me.
Automatically, you think you're the other.
No, they did. They automatically looked at me like I was bad. Here's the funny thing. I'm not in either one. And that's what I thought was awesome. And I was like, I just called you out. So back to the character thing. But free speech, make sure you get out and about before anybody starts talking about, oh, there's a threat of the Constitution. Really, how do you know? Because I watched it on CNN or I read it on Fox or I did it on Newsmax or blah, blah, blah. No, there's not. Now, go back. I will tell you this. There's been some, here's what does scare me. A lot of people think he's crazy. Maybe. I don't know. But, Elon Musk, what was going on with Twitter before he bought it? What happened? I mean, that's verifiable. They were censoring people. That, Kim, that's scary. That's scary when the government is using the media to do that. Okay? That's scary. And the reason is because what is coming out? I like bad, ugly. I want it to be so ugly and bad. Eventually, mature people like us will say, okay, you're an idiot, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. I don't even want to see it, hear from it. Okay? I can listen to what I want to listen to. I can read what I want to read. But more importantly, get face to face every chance you can with somebody. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I like you said on your thing, I filled out, do I want to be on video or just audio, right? Why would you not be on video?
Safety concerns are pretty important these days. I think a lot of people
Mhm.
are afraid of not only lunatics on the internet deciding to track you down and dox you or something
Maybe they'll
violating like
AI me
that.
and make me taller.
but
Or put
but
a
also
Heisman Trophy behind me. Yeah,
there you go. We could do that.
Okay.
But I think I respectfully disagree that, I mean, it seems like you don't think the Constitution is under threat the way it's portrayed in the media. I am more aligned with Kim. I see people's First Amendment rights being threatened
Give me an
when
example.
people are being arrested for publishing a piece in their college
opinion piece.
newsletter or whatever,
I don't see,
or
baby. Now,
when
here's the
people
deal.
are when American citizens are being detained by ICE, or when habeas corpus is being denied to people, when people are being illegally deported before due process. That feels like it's in direct violation of the Constitution.
Okay, so I guess my question, I think the Constitution's not, because I think free speech in the last 5 years has gotten 10 times better, especially the last 2 years. And I don't care. And like I said, I've met multiple chief executives, and I think they're all crazy. If I run for office, like, first of all, anybody that complains about anything, until they vote for I won't listen to many of them unless we talk about term limits, right? Okay, let's fix that.
Amen.
Mm.
You said some American citizen are being arrested by ICE or people being deported. Yeah, I think some are. Uh, but here's the big issue. 2+ million people, verifiable. This is not me being political. I was shocked when I heard this, crossing the southern border illegally. Southern border. Now here's what, and I'll give you a prime example. 60,000 plus military age Chinese males cross the southern border between 2021 and 2025. Chinese males. How'd they get there? That doesn't bother anybody? I mean, literally, you're talking millions upon millions. And
Realist fact check. While the amount of Chinese immigrants rose at the southern border based on completed reporting numbers for this time, the amount of visas for Chinese people is still significantly lower than it was prior to the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, the amount of visas issued for Chinese people was consistently more than 1 million and even reached over 2 million in 2015 and 2016, according to the US State Department. The use of quote unquote military age as a description of immigrants can be viewed very differently based on the country, as some countries have different requirements for military service. Logically speaking, it does make sense that younger and healthier individuals would be more likely to successfully complete an immigration journey. That's just nature. However, it should also be noted that U.S. Customs and Borders Protection doesn't release specific age or gender data about immigrants at the border. The demographics they use are broken down into 4 categories, which are accompanied minors, individuals in a family unit, single adults, and unaccompanied alien children, otherwise known as single minors. From what I was able to find, what can only be presumed as an inaccurate description based on the aforementioned facts came from Trump in a Fox News interview, where he just said that Chinese immigrants were mostly men, almost all men from the age of 18 to 25. Similar comments about military age men followed by at least a handful of conservatives. Research suggests that Chinese immigrants may fly to Ecuador as a starting point for their immigration journey to the US, because Ecuador didn't require a visa prior to mid-2024, which might explain why they're coming through the southern border.
back to, where have I been in my career? What parts of the country, of the world have I been to? What have I seen? Um, hell yeah, I know this sounds awful. I'm totally upset that if an American citizen is getting arrested, okay? Um, I'm not totally upset if somebody is here illegal and they commit a crime, and I don't care if it's jaywalking. I don't care, okay? Um, when, you work, I work, I think there needs to be kind of a compromise, but until it's identified where we are, you know what I'm saying? I'm with you. If 2.1 million illegals didn't cross the border in the last 5 years, I might be throwing a fit if we got all these, ICE and everybody in these towns where riots are going on and all these things are happening. But I know that's not the case. I look at that and say, how did they get in there? And that's just millions upon millions. Why? Look at the current shutdown right now. I don't know a lot, but I know this. It's tough here because in Kentucky, SNAP benefits are a big deal. That's tough. Um, but I was shocked at 43 million. 43 million people on that. How's that? And so to me, when I don't think, the Constitution, I'm kind of a purist on that, but I also think it's always been under attack. And the reason is we're the only country in the world that's been around under the same Constitution for over 200 years. We're only one. I don't know if you've ever been, how many foreign countries you've been to. Um, Everybody's based on us. Um, Look at other countries around the world. They have immigration problems. Yeah. A lot of them are doing it to try to stop birth rate and all kind of other stuff. But everywhere you go in the world, where do people want to move to? Think about that.
Mhm.
I don't see you haven't taken your family from Afghanistan.
That's precisely why so-called illegal border crossings don't bother me, because this country does nothing but brag about how amazing it is, and then it doesn't want anyone to come here. So it
Well, no,
seems
I
like
don't
a
mind anybody
catch-22.
coming here, but I know that here's my problem with that. So I've
Well,
got
coming here to seek asylum, like this
yeah,
seems like a
but
pretty good place to seek asylum,
yeah,
except we're
but
not hospitable to people
well, I
seeking
think we
asylum.
are hospitable. For example, I'll tell you this, Macklin. Have you sponsored any immigrating new American citizens?
I have not.
I have. They're my interpreters from Afghanistan. Okay,
Fantastic.
went through the whole process with their family.
Fantastic.
Okay, never once went on welfare or anything like that. And hardest working people ever. And clear, everything was clear. We went through the whole process, and he's American citizen. His wife, his kids are doing awesome. Now we got his brothers. Has helped them do the same thing. Okay, I'm all about immigration. My grandparents, my mom's, my great grandparents. So my mom's grandmother, whatever. My mom's mom was the first one born here. I'm all about it. But my concern is when I've been around the world, and I've seen what happens. If nobody knows who's who, and I know it sounds, you don't just hand out money and say, hey, by the way, see you later. By the way, we got no proof of who you are. No idea. That to me is a concern. You know what I mean? That's but like I said, sponsor somebody to be an American citizen. You ought to do that. See how that process works. Trust me, I'm all about it's the greatest country in the world. You want to come here? Yeah, we have a legal process to do so. You want to move to France? They have a legal process. Every other country pretty much has legal processes.
We have legal process.
We do. But how do you do that? And it's not the number one thing is this. If I sneak into your house, I mean, do y'all have problems with I'm in real estate, squatters?
I have a problem with
No, you have
vacant buildings sitting there while like
no,
we have
but
more vacant houses and buildings in this country than we have unhoused people. So
we
that
do.
seems
I'm
like
with
a
you there. But here's my
great
question.
solution.
Do you know if you owned a building and you and your wife went to France to go for a month and somebody moved in there, or if you rented, they could squat. That happens all the time. Kind of the same thing. And it's like, wait a second. Now, like I said, there's no perfect answer. My thing is nothing is perfect, but I like where things are going, vice where they were. Back to what I said before. Remember, my opinion, we can all agree to disagree. I don't like people hiding behind other people. I can't stand that. It's weak. But where this goes with the Marine Corps, I don't know. But
I was going to say, let me circle back here.
Thank you, fellow realists, for joining us to get real about the Marines. If you want to hear more reflections and thoughts on the Marines, please come back to join us for part 2 of our continued conversation with Kevin.